Hi guys, today we're going to show you how to run propane lines from a propane tank separate from your house and get them run over to your house, how you typically do it. We live in Oregon here. This is in the Clackamas County district, and this is what they have us do to meet code. So to start with, your propane tank, if it's larger than 100 gallons, then it needs to be more than 25 feet away from your house. So right here, we're about 50 feet away from the house, and we already have the trench dug and the plastic lines in place that the propane will run through, along with a yellow tracer wire, as you can see there. So since our tank is about 30 feet or so from the house, minimum needs to be 25 feet. But at that distance, you're going to want to have a two-stage regulator system. So you'll have a smaller red regulator, they're usually red, and that's the first stage. And that will bring the high pressure of the tank down to about 10 psi or so. And then it'll travel at 10 psi through the line that goes underground up to the house, where we'll have the second stage regulator. That regulator is usually green, and it brings the pressure down to about a half a psi. So since this first stretch is 10 psi, which is about 20 times the pressure of the lines that actually run through your house, even with a half-inch line, you can go hundreds of feet and still have enough propane at the end and enough pressure to run a huge house. So we don't have our first stage regulator here yet. We're ready for our first inspection. So we have this end of our underground line capped. I believe this stuff is by HomeFlex, and it is designed to be buried directly in the ground, and it has special fittings that connect it to the end piece that comes out of the ground and to extensions or 90s, or depending on how you're running it under the ground. So that's how we go under the ground. You can see we have our tracer wire here, and that needs to be where we live here in Oregon. This needs to be 2 feet under the ground. I assume that's probably the code for most places in the US. All right, so now we're ready to look at the house side of the propane lines. So if you're going to run propane lines outside on the exterior of your house, for an older house like this, where it's not a new construction where we already have access on the inside, it's a lot cheaper and easier to run our lines on the outside. And the type of line you'll probably want to run on the outside is a galvanized steel pipe. It's relatively inexpensive. It just takes a little bit of time to get the right length fittings to fit together to go around your corners and route it where you'd like to. Now, some pros, they have a tool where they can actually add threads to the end of a pipe so they can cut it to exactly where they want and put threads on. We don't have one of those tools. We don't do this all that often. So we just buy the right length pipes, put them together with couplings to reach the length that we need for where we're headed. Out of the ground from the propane tank, we're going to go into the second stage regulator. We don't have that here yet, but if we did, it'd be the green regulator that puts out about half a psi pressure, and that's the pressure that runs through the lines that go inside the house. So going out of there, we'll go into a 3/4 inch line. There's charts for all the number of BTUs that you can run off of a given size line. And a 3/4 inch line can typically handle all the appliances in your house off of 1 3/4 inch line. So even if you have a gas furnace, a gas water heater, a gas dryer, and a gas range, those are your typical ones that you're going to have. All those will run off of 1 3/4 inch line without any problem, depending on the length of the line. If you do have a really big house where the line's running 50 feet across the house, then you do start to drop in the number of BTUs you can handle over that line. For us, we're only going about 20 feet. So the 3/4 inch line is going to be great for our application. Next, we'll go over a couple tips for when you're attaching together this galvanized steel piping. On the thread end of the connection, you'll want to put some pipe sealant. We've used both the slow dry and the fast dry. I think the slow dry makes a little bit better connection, is less likely to leak afterwards. But you do have to wait at least a full day before you can pressure test it. But we're going to use a slow dry today. So you put that on the threaded end, and this pipe isn't connected to the house yet. It's still loose. We just fed it back behind the gutter here. And before we attach it, we're going to thread this on, and that's something you have to keep in mind whenever you're working with this pipe. You have to put your fittings together in a direction that will allow you to rotate them. If this was already attached over here, I couldn't spin this, and then I would have a problem, and I'd have to disconnect something. So I'm going to put this end on first. I already have the sealant on that end, so I can get this started. I would recommend getting these pretty tight. You can't really over tighten it unless you got really long wrenches and you're really strong. So I would tighten it down. They usually don't bottom out. So tighten it till it's nice and snug. And if it's a fitting that you need to rotate until you're in the right position, you want to slow down at the end once it starts to get tight and make sure you stop when it's facing the direction you want. So I'll go over what I put on this end. Right now I have a pressure tester on there, and I just prepped it with it right now. So when I'm all done, I'll just be able to add air to here after I wait for the sealant to dry on the threads, and be able to test to make sure everything holds pressure before I do anything with actual propane. And I also put a T on, so in the future, the homeowner here can run a gas line over for when they upgrade their furnace to a gas furnace. But right now, we just put a plug in there, so it's ready for them in the future. From the 3/4 inch line here, we put a T at the end. One of the 3/4 inch lines that come off of the T, we put a cap in, and they'll be able to extend that in the future to go to their water heater when they upgrade it to run on propane as well. Then the T that comes up, we downsize that to a 1/2 inch line, and that 1/2 inch line will still have enough overall volume to be able to run their propane barbecue and the gas range upstairs. We'll go up there right now, show you how that's going to work with the valves we installed, and then we'll be done for the day. So now we're up on the deck where that 1/2 inch line came up through, and here we put another T, and we put a valve where they'll be able to connect their barbecue. Now, we like to install the valves so they're on the back side of the pipe if possible. This way they're less likely to get bumped. So we have in the off position for pressure testing, but we also put a temporary plug in so that when we're doing our testing, we can ensure that no leaks are coming from the valve because we're definitely plugged off there. Now we can take a look on the inside real quick and see how we did the connection for the range. This is the inside of the house here, and you can see we came straight in through the siding where we caulked around, so it's a nice sealed connection. Water won't get inside. And then we put a 90 and another valve, and you can see we also put the valve on the inside, so it's less likely to get bumped. And this thread connection here is a compression fitting. This is the fitting that the flexible line that connects to your range wants. So by doing a valve that directly has that, we have one less fitting to deal with, costs a little bit less, and there's one less place to leak. All right, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully that was useful for you. And if you need to run propane to your house, hopefully these tips will give you a little head start. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.